Fun thing about this recipe is that you can go wild with mushrooms. You can use whatever you can find at your grocery store, your farmer's market. If you know how to forage mushrooms, go for it. Prepping for these mushrooms, you just want to cut off the hard woody parts, but also give it a nice rough chop as well so that it will blend better in the Cuisinart. For the oyster mushrooms, it has a little stem here. I just like to kind of cut around that stem like you would a cauliflower. The inspiration for this dish was coming up with a vegetarian alternative to our pork country-style pâté. Okay, now we're ready to pulse this in the Cuisinart. Be sure to pulse this really gently so that you don't get a paste. You want it to be a nice rough chop texture. While you're pulsing this, go ahead and turn your pan on. That way you can get it hot enough for these mushrooms to have the liquid evaporated out of them. Depending on the size of your Cuisinart, you might want to work in multiple batches. And now for some green onions and some thyme. Throw them right in the Cuisinart, it's super simple. I use the whites and the green parts, and I think they're equally as delicious. You can put the thyme in with the green onions as well, but you want to take the leaves off of the stems. You want everything to be consistent texture. Now we are ready for sauté. This step takes a little longer than the other steps. You can see where all of the moisture is evaporating, and when there's no more bubbles, it's ready. I always season as I go when I cook anything. That way you can season properly every time. Now I'm gonna add sherry. Finish this off. We have to wait for that to evaporate as well. Be careful when you pulse pecans. Sometimes you'll make peanut butter by accident. And then you're gonna add your mushrooms. Give it a nice stir. We're gonna add our final touches, parsley, lemon, and goat cheese. This parsley is so fragrant, it's just picked right from the garden. Makes a big difference if you have fresh ingredients. I always like to use lemon zest. It adds a little bit more zing and flavor. It's good to do this while it's still a little warm. That way the goat cheese will melt and spread itself throughout the pâté. Before we put it in the mold, you really want to try this and make sure that the seasoning is perfect. Once you get it refrigerated in the mold, it's too late. You might need to add some more salt and pepper. Now we're ready for the mold. The reason why we put this in the saran wrap is so it's a lot easier to get out once it's cold. Using your hand, you smooth it out as well, and then tap it out so that any air bubbles will rise to the surface. Ready to refrigerate. Okay, this has been refrigerated for 8 to 12 hours, or you can leave it overnight. Just make sure that it's set all the way, and you can just do that by feeling it. Okay, we have this nice ciabatta. Definitely cut the bread thin enough so that you're tasting the pâté and not just bread. You can go ahead and slice this a few times to entice your guests to start eating it right away. And finally, parsley for color. And there you have it, some mushroom pâté for your holiday guests.